The landscape of La Liga has shifted seismically this Monday evening. What began as a mission to consolidate dominance has ended in a capitulation that may well define the remainder of the season. The headlines will read that Girona defeated Barcelona 2-1 at the Estadio Montilivi, but the subtext is far more damaging for the Blaugrana. Barcelona has officially surrendered the top spot in the league table. With this defeat, combined with the weekend's results, Real Madrid has ascended to the summit, holding 60 points to Barcelona's 58. This was not merely a loss of 3 points, it was a loss of control, a forfeiture of momentum, and perhaps a decisive blow to the psychological fortitude of a team that is suddenly looking very fragile. Coming into this matchday 24 fixture, the pressure was already mounting. The wounds from midweek were still fresh, a 4-0 thrashing at the hands of Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey semifinals. That kind of result demands a reaction, it demands character. And for large swaths of this match, Barcelona looked like a team desperate to make amends, yet ultimately they lacked the clinical edge and the defensive concentration required to be champions. Hansi Flick's side arrived in Girona knowing that the margin for error had evaporated. The narrative was supposed to be bolstered by the return of Rafinha. The Brazilian winger was back in the starting 11 after his injury layoff, a sight that should have injected dynamism into the attack. However, the reality on the pitch was starkly different. Rafinha, clearly lacking match sharpness, struggled to influence proceedings, unable to register a goal or an assist, becoming a symbol of a Barcelona attack that huffed and puffed but failed to blow the house down when it mattered most. The first half was a tactical stalemate, a game of chess played on a damp pitch. Girona, the revelation of recent seasons, remained disciplined, absorbing pressure and waiting for the spaces that Barcelona inevitably leaves when they push high. But the pivotal moment, the moment that will be replayed in nightmares for culés tonight, came deep into stoppage time of the first half. It seemed the breakthrough had finally arrived. Dani Olmo, who had been probing the lines all half, drove into the box and was brought down by Daily Blind. It was a clear penalty. The referee didn't hesitate. Up stepped Yamal. The youngster has carried the weight of this club on his shoulders so often, perhaps too often. He placed the ball, assumed the responsibility, and looked to send Barcelona into the break with a lead. But the margins at this level are microscopic. His strike beat Gazzaniga, but smashed against the left post. The sound of the ball ricocheting off the woodwork was the sound of opportunity slipping away. Walking into the tunnel at 0-0, having squandered a golden chance from the spot, the psychological pendulum began to swing. Despite the setback, the second half began with renewed purpose. Barcelona needed 13 minutes to finally break the deadlock, and it came from an unlikely source. It wasn't the forwards, but the defense stepping up. Jules Koundé, finding space on the flank, delivered a precise cross into the heart of the area. Pau Cubarsí, showing the instincts of a veteran striker rather than a young center-back, rose highest. His header was firm, technically perfect, leaving the keeper with no chance. 58 minutes in, 1-0 to Barcelona. At that moment, it felt like order had been restored. It felt like the 3 points were secure. But in football, and particularly in La Liga this season, complacency is fatal. The celebration had barely subsided when Girona struck back. Just 3 minutes after conceding, the hosts dismantled Barcelona's defensive structure. Viktor Tsigankov, operating with dangerous freedom, drilled a low cross into the danger zone. Thomas Lemar was the quickest to react, ghosting in to slot the ball home. 1-1. The equalizer was a masterclass in efficiency, but from a Barcelona perspective, it was a disaster of concentration. To concede so quickly after taking the lead speaks to a mental fragility that is becoming a worrying trend for this squad. From that point on, the dynamic of the match inverted completely. The equalizer breathed life into the Montilivi crowd and fire into the Girona players. They sensed blood. For the next 20 minutes, Barcelona was on the ropes, holding on by a thread. That thread was their goalkeeper, Joan Garcia. We have to give credit where it is due. Garcia produced a sequence of saves that can only be described as absurd. He was single-handedly keeping Barcelona in the title race for a brief period, denying Girona time and again as the home side besieged the goal. However, a goalkeeper can only do so much when the system in front of him collapses. The inevitable transpired in the 86th minute. As the clock ticked towards the end, Fran Beltran found himself with space at the edge of the box. His finish was pure class, composed, accurate, and lethal. He beat Garcia, and the scoreboard ticked over to 2-1. The comeback was complete. The stadium erupted, while the Barcelona players slumped, realizing the gravity of what had just occurred. The final minutes were marred by frustration. Barcelona pushed, but it was a chaotic, desperate push, rather than a calculated assault. The tension boiled over in stoppage time when Joel Roca put in a heavy, dangerous challenge on Lamine Yamal. The referee produced the red card immediately, sending Roca off, but the damage was already done. Lamine Yamal's frustration was visible, not just at the foul, but at the evening as a whole, the missed penalty, the physical battering, and the result. When the final whistle blew, it confirmed a catastrophic week for Barcelona. 2 consecutive defeats, 4 goals conceded against Atletico, 2 tonight against Girona.
But the most painful statistic is the league table. They are stuck on 58 points. Real Madrid, sitting on 60, are now the provisional leaders. In a race this tight, dropping points against a direct rival like Girona is damaging, but surrendering the lead to your arch-rivals with only a third of the season remaining is a heavy psychological blow. Tonight, the analysis will focus on the missed penalty by Yamal, and rightly so, as goals change games. But the deeper issue lies in how Barcelona managed the game after taking the lead. They failed to kill the game, they failed to control the tempo, and they allowed Girona to dictate the narrative in the final half hour. The defense, usually a pillar, looked porous immediately after scoring. The attack, despite the return of Rafinha, looked disjointed. Hansi Flick's side has a massive job on his hands to rally this troop. They have gone from being the hunted to the hunters in the span of 90 minutes. The momentum is now firmly with the team from the capital. For Barcelona, the trip back from Girona will be a short one geographically, but it will feel like the longest journey of the season. They arrived as leaders, they leave as chasers. And in La Liga, once Real Madrid takes the lead down the stretch, they rarely let it slip. The title race has turned, and Barcelona has no one to blame but themselves.